Have you ever had a moment where you realized you're building the life you said you wanted, but you don't feel moved by it? Or maybe you're trying to take the steps towards it, but the steps themselves, they don't feel right. It doesn't feel good. Like you're doing the routines, the parenting, the business, the habits, the right actions, and it still feels weirdly flat. Not bad, not tragic, just bland. Or maybe you want to make changes, but you lose the motivation to push on because the moves, they don't feel right. Like you're working, you're building, you're growing. The goals you're aiming for are aligned. You feel it deep down. And yet the process doesn't feel the way you thought it should. So you stall. Or maybe you get there and it doesn't give you the relief you imagined it would. It doesn't feel beautiful. And I don't mean beauty in the photographic sense. I mean beauty in your body sense, the experience of it, the expansive, inspiring, life-affirming sense of beauty. Because when beauty is healthy, inspiration is automatic. Action feels pulled because effort has meaning. And when beauty is offline, you can still do all the right things, but nothing is lighting you up. Now let me ground this. Have you ever walked into a beautiful space and felt your whole body change? Your posture shifts, your shoulders drop, you stand straighter, you move more gracefully, your face softens, you breathe deeper. Because something in that environment gave your nervous system permission to settle and your soul to rise up into form. That is the kind of beauty I'm talking about. And if you just felt a little exhale as you listen to that, you're in the right place. Because when the path to success feels heavy, like maybe it's more effort than it is rewarding, or getting there is strangely anticlimactic and maybe even deflating, that isn't a you problem. It's a how problem. Or more accurately, it's a from where problem. It's not about your inherent motivation or how disciplined or undisciplined you are. It isn't a problem with your character. It's a problem with what I call the personal power of beauty. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why your ability to get and enjoy a successful life is shaped by your attachment style, and how you can finally bring beauty back into the life you're already building.
You're listening to The Science and Spirit of Happy, a podcast unpacking the sustainable dreams theory. This revolutionary work is grounded in a simple truth, that your dream is your destiny. And your happiness is just a symbol of your purpose unfolding.
G'day, yo! Welcome back! I'm so excited to be jumping into this season. We're talking about how your attachment style, or how your earliest years of development, shape your ability to have and to hold success and happiness in your adult life. This is so important to talk about because most advice out there is completely missing the point. We know how you were raised pretty much dictates how you will live for the rest of your life. But we typically attribute it to all the wrong things. They say money begets money. So if you're born with money, then it's a surefire way to have money when you're older. But they ignore that most people who make a windfall, earning or winning an unprecedented amount of money for them, usually lose it. They say better education and resources are the reason children of wealthy people are wealthy themselves, but disregard that only about 1 in 10 billionaires hold a graduate degree. So more education certainly doesn't equate to the highest earnings. And I'm not saying that education doesn't matter. My degrees were the best thing I ever did for my personal and therefore professional development. But notice the nuance. I said those years dedicated to my education were pivotal in my professional development because of how they influenced my personal development. The success you achieve through any kind of training is not primarily about what you learn, but who you become in the process. Researchers have found that when children from impoverished families are even exposed to wealth during their development, their income outcomes dramatically increase. Why? It's not the elite schools they don't get to attend. It's not the inheritance they're never going to receive. It's the worldview, their belief in what's possible that's impacted. It's who they think they can be. And that is most prominently shaped by attachment. If you want to find out why in details, read my book, Be Yourself, Not Your Parents. It goes through all the personal powers and how your upbringing shapes your adult life. But for this episode, I'm diving into the personal power of beauty specifically and how this capacity leads to success. But first, let's talk about what the heck I mean by the personal power of beauty. Because beauty, what I mean by beauty, isn't really about preference or taste. What you find beautiful is, but the power of beauty isn't about anything personal or appearances. Beauty, like every other personal power, is a capacity. It's your capacity for the beautiful things in life, not just the ones that look good, but the ones that feel good to be around. Beauty is the part of you that gets moved by life. It's the yes in your body, the uplift, the inspiration, the sense of more that makes effort feel worth it. And if you listen to the bounty episode, last episode, you know the punchline. That more isn't a strategy problem. It's a nervous system capacity. Bounty is your body's capacity to receive and therefore hold more. Beauty is the capacity that turns more into a pull instead of pressure. It's the part of you that makes the path feel worth it. And that is where reliable motivation comes from the district of body. Because beauty is where endless inspiration lives. And like everything else we're talking about this season, it's learned through attachment first. So quick refresher on what I mean or what developmental psychologists mean by attachment. Attachment is a survival instinct from an infant's perspective, keeping them close to caregivers for protection, comfort, and emotional co-regulation, survival. This is crucial for brain development and their ability to self-regulate. And most of the research on attachment proves that early interactions with primary caregivers create an internal working model for future relationships. And that's typically where the explanation on attachment stops. But the effects of your early childhood attachment certainly do not stop there. Attachment doesn't just teach us whether people are safe, it teaches us whether being ourselves is safe, whether enjoyment is safe, whether what gives us joy is safe, whether desire is safe, whether expansion is safe, whether more is welcome or discouraged. And this isn't usually some cartoonish bad parent thing. Shutting joy and expansion down happens constantly. Kids are basically little desire machines, right? They're pulled towards movement, exploration, noise, play. And adults are trying to keep things clean, calm, safe, and socially acceptable. It's the normal moments, okay? The kid who's too loud, too excited, too messy, too curious for the parent. The jumping, the climbing, the singing, the questions, the look at what I can do energy. And the adult response is not now, calm down, stop, be careful, you're too much. So the message becomes subtle but repetitive. Tone it down, don't want so much, don't take up so much space. And this is where so many people get quietly shaped in ways they never wanted. Because A, your parents likely didn't know anything about attachment, okay? It's a newish field. B, most of the colloquial child rearing advice back when we were kids, and much of it even now, was harmful to attachment. Okay, even the advice from experts. C, roughly half of the population is insecurely attached. Some stats say more, some less, but half seems to be a good enough estimate, which essentially means around half the population has serious attachment trauma, not just suboptimal relating styles. I mentioned previously that insecure attachment is measured by wildly unnatural responses to caregivers. It's relational trauma, not an unideal relating style. So D, not totally traumatized, so what many people call secure attachment, does not mean optimal attachment. So the conversation stops there and nobody knows where to go. If what they want is to optimize the relationship to themselves and to life, they reach a dead end. But the kind of suboptimal attachment I'm talking about, the kind that gets in your way from living your dream life, isn't about major trauma in the dramatic sense of something being seriously wrong. It's just about patterning, or what I call microtrauma. It's about what your body learned it needed to do in order to belong. Remember when I said attachment is a survival instinct for infants? Think about that. Belonging, okay, to you, to me, to our kids, to everyone on this planet, meant survival in our youth. So let me say this very clearly before we go any further, okay? This is not about bad parents. I mean, this is about bad parenting, but even that, it's not about blame. Okay, this is not about serious or intentional wrongdoing. Most beauty dents or deficits come from loving, well-meaning, overstretched, or simply ill-informed caregivers, not from malintent. But the nervous system doesn't learn from intention. It learns from experience. And in early childhood attachment, the body is asking one core question. Is it safe for me to enjoy being here? If joy created stress in the room, if your excitement overwhelmed someone, if your enjoyment had to be moderated, if your desire felt like too much, if your happiness needed managing, your body learned something very specific. It learned that beauty creates tension, that enjoyment costs something, that feeling good might require containment, that being fully alive might not be welcome. So instead of learning, I'm allowed to enjoy my life, the body learns, I need to be careful with how much I enjoy. And that pattern doesn't disappear just because you grow up. It follows you into adulthood, especially if you're capable, okay? Especially if you're driven. Especially if you're successful. Because here's the quiet paradox. The more competent you become, the more your system can rely on effort instead of inspiration. The more you can perform without enjoyment. The more you can build without inhabiting the life you're meaning to build. The more you can succeed in a way while feeling strangely disconnected from the experience of success that you really crave. This is why beauty is so often blocked in people who are doing everything right. Because early attachment didn't teach their nervous system how to hold goodness steadily, openly, without anxious vigilance. It taught them how to function, how to adapt, how to manage, how to regulate others, how to push through. So that natural shape of beauty, which requires openness, softness, and receptivity, to feel the pull of the driving force behind nature and evolution. It never fully integrated at the level of belief, at the layer of body. And I want to be very precise here. Underdeveloped beauty is not emotional immaturity. It's not a lack of gratitude, nor is it self-sabotage necessarily. We'll talk about those later in the energy episodes. Underdeveloped beauty is a somatic adaptation. This is body. So when things start to feel too good, too enjoyable, too easeful, too inspiring, the body tightens. Not because you don't deserve it, but because it never learned how to relax inside it. And this isn't just theory, okay? We see this in very early development. One of the consistent findings in attachment research is that securely attached children explore more. They move their bodies more freely. They roam farther from caregivers. They try more things. They return for reassurance, and then they go again. Not because they're braver inherently, not because they're more confident by personality, but because their nervous system isn't busy managing threat. When a child doesn't have to monitor the emotional climate of a room, when they don't have to track whether joy will be disruptive, when they don't have to brace for withdrawal or overwhelm, their body is simply free to move, free to explore, free to play, free to follow impulse, free to listen to inspiration. And if you can see that difference in something as small as how a child moves their body, how much they explore the world, how much more they play, how much more goodness they're open to, then imagine how this shapes an adult's ability to enjoy their life. Beauty is that same mechanism, just grown up. It's the body's willingness to move towards what feels good, to explore what inspires it, to engage with life without bracing. When attachment taught you that movement, desire, or expansion might destabilize the system, the body learned inhibition instead of inspiration. But you don't stop wanting a beautiful life. You just stop trusting your impulses toward it. And that is why we talk about beauty in the body district, not as aesthetics, not as indulgence, but as nervous system permission. Permission to enjoy the life you're building without bracing for fallout. Attachment doesn't just shape how we relate to people, it shapes how we relate to enjoyment. Now, before we get into the beauty dents, what I call dents, I want to orient you inside my framework because this will make the rest of the episode really click. If you're familiar with the science and spirit of happy, or with my proprietary research, the Sustainable Dreams Theory, which I originally prepared for academic publication before choosing to build it into a practical methodology for real people with real goals. Did you already know this? I mapped human development into districts: mind, heart, spirit or energy, and body. Each district has its own intelligence, its own way of processing reality, and each has a personal power that, when healthy, makes success feel natural. Now, if you've read my book, you'll know I typically explain the personal powers from the top down, from mind first, because the mind is the control room. So when we want to make changes to our patterning, it makes sense to start there. However, when we're talking about attachment, when we're talking about how our earliest experiences shaped who we became, the direction reverses. Early childhood development doesn't happen top down, okay? It happens bottom up. Children develop first through the body, then through the spirit, then through the heart, and finally through the mind. And when I say mind, I do not necessarily mean brain. It's an important distinction because I'll talk about neuroscience and attachment and how the first 3 years build the bulk of the brain, etc. But brain has facets of all the districts really, and is primarily body to be exact. But when I say mind, I mean consciousness, the faculty for reason, reflection, etc. So for this season, the attachment season, we're moving through the theory in order that human beings actually develop. And that means we begin where everything begins, in the body. Now, in my framework, the intelligence of the body is what I call somatic IQ. Somatic IQ is the body's operating system. It's the part of you that holds belief physically as neurological programming, nervous system patterning, instinct, rhythm, and reflex. It's not your conscious beliefs, okay? The ones you journal about. I mean the beliefs that operate you. the unconscious pre-verbal expectations your body holds about what is safe, what is allowed, what is possible for you, what is worth it. This is long before you could think about it. So when I talk about shape, this is what I mean. Your shape is the patterning that determines where you fit in life, what comes easily to you, what feels natural, what feels heavy, what feels threatening, and what you can actually hold once you get it. And attachment is one of the biggest forces shaping that shape. Now, inside this theory, I use two keywords, dents and deficits. Okay, a dent is a hurt, a moment where your natural shape gets damaged. Someone intrudes and imposes a restriction that's corrosive to your natural shape. So read unhelpful and inappropriate. Okay, dents are normal, they happen, and they heal naturally. But when dents happen early and they get reinforced, repeated, or impressed upon you again and again, they become deficits. So a deficit is when your patterns start to actually uphold the dent, okay? So it becomes a sustained alteration of your shape. This is mechanical. The systematic aspect of my methodology is this. Each personal power has predictable dents because it has specific strengths. So each dent has predictable symptoms. And if it repeats long enough, it creates a predictable deficit pattern. That's why I can tell my students, if you're experiencing this, it usually came from this type of patterning. And here's how we repattern it. So today, because beauty is a body district personal power, we're looking at somatic IQ dents in beauty. And I'm going to go deep on the most common one. Beauty dent number 1 is blocked desire. That's when wanting doesn't feel safe. So you soften, rationalize, and downplay what you want before anyone else can. And your dreams stall because desire gets filtered through fear. This is where dreams go to die, okay? And if this is you, you're going to hate what I have to say next. But I'm saying it because it's true. Your dream is your destiny. Whether you live up to it is up to you, but deep down, you know that's true. So blocked desire is when you dumb down the dream for what's quote unquote reasonable, or you dismiss it as, quote unquote, just a dream, instead of the vision that it is. So you know who you are, but many people aren't even anywhere near that, okay? They've dismissed the dream so wholly that they don't even know what they want anymore. So for those people, blocked desire shows up in small daily ways, okay? You're on a website looking at something you genuinely want, a course, a dress, a weekend away, a new couch, whatever. You feel a flicker of excitement and then you immediately start negotiating it down. I don't need it. It's silly. I'll wait. I should be responsible. It's not the right time. Okay, you leave the tab open for days, maybe, then you close it and, you tell yourself you're fine. But you feel weirdly flat, okay? Like life has no pull. And I want to share something personal here, okay? I recently bought my dream car and I had a blocked desire reaction to it too. I told myself so many times that something less expensive would be fine. So I know exactly how this feels, okay? But once I got used to that car, I could never go back. It makes such a huge positive difference in my life. I can't even explain it. We go out more and farther because I love driving it. Okay, more experiences, more memories, more comfort, and honestly, more confidence. Now, I'm not saying go into debt pretending that this is self-care or whatever, okay? I'm saying when you get really honest about what you can do, beauty is often an investment. It's not extravagance. Because blocked desire doesn't just show up in big purchases. It can show up as simply not saying what restaurant you want, or not admitting you really want more from your partner, or not letting yourself name what you actually want from your work, or not living in a house that's as clean as you want it to be. And if you want the simplest definition of what we're healing here, it's this. Beauty restores permission to want. Not impulsively, not desperately, but cleanly, confidently, without self-containment. Because wanting is not dangerous, okay? Wanting is information. And when this dent softens, desire becomes direction, not extravagance, not a threat. Now, there are other beauty dents, and I'm going to name them here so you can locate yourself, but we go deep on these inside the membership. I don't have time to go deep on them here. But beauty dent number 2 is inspiration without aliveness. So you understand the steps and you feel inspired cognitively, like you see the bright light in your brain, but your body feels flat and heavy about it. So action becomes forced and discipline replaces real pull, or more like willpower, not discipline as I explain it. Beauty dent number 3 is goodness feels unsafe. So things can be going really well, but your nervous system can't relax inside the goodness. So ease actually triggers vigilance and success becomes achievable, but not really inhabitable. Beauty dent 4 is life doesn't feel like home. So you never fully land anywhere, even in a good life. So you stay restless, you don't settle in, your home doesn't, feel the way you want it to. You keep upgrading maybe, but you can't feel belonging in your body or your day to day. And if you recognize yourself in any of those, just know these aren't personality flaws, okay? They're not. This is not something wrong with you. They're dents that became deficits. They're patterns, and patterns can be repatterned. So what does high somatic IQ beauty actually feel like? What does beauty feel like when it's fully developed? In my work, every layer of human development has an intelligence to it. I already explained this: mind, heart, energy, and body. They all have their own kind of intelligence, but it's not inherent. These are patterned intelligences. It's like less traditional IQ and more like what psychologists mean when they talk about emotional intelligence, right? They're developed kind of skills and patterns. We all have innate strengths, but our capacity in those areas is largely developmental. So beauty is a personal power of the body district. The intelligence associated, as I said, with body is somatic IQ, or SIQ. And when beauty runs a deficit, when those dents become sustained patterns, it lowers somatic IQ in this specific area. Now, here's the most important thing I want you to hear before we go any further. None of what we've talked about today means you're broken, but I also don't want to pretend nothing was missing. Something was missing, and something else formed in its place. That matters. But none of it means that you've missed out for good, okay? None of it means that you're necessarily doing life wrong, and none of it means that this is your personality or destiny to relive forever, okay? This is learned, it's patterned. It's not your fault, it's your responsibility. But I want to be very clear, okay? I've broken this down mechanistically. I understand it at a systematic level. This is not a mindset issue. This is not a character problem. This is a body-based pattern. If you need to understand what I mean by that in a blink, think nervous system patterning and you'll have the crux right there. And because it was learned, it can be relearned. Because it was patterned, it can be repatterned. Okay, that process in my work is what I call reshaping. Those dents we talk about, those micro traumas, those beauty deficits, they are not who you really are. They are simply how you are now. Places where your natural shape adapted in order to belong, to cope, to survive. And beauty as a personal power is something that can be consciously and safely developed, which is why this next part matters, okay? Because this is what it actually feels like when beauty is online. When somatic IQ is no longer running a deficit in this area, but is high and evolved. Because beauty isn't something you add to your life, okay? It's something your body becomes capable of holding. When beauty is developed to a base to high level SIQ, a few very specific things start to change. Not mind over matter, not convince yourself to enjoy the moment. I mean tangibly, okay? Viscerally, instinctually, by default. Here are 5 of the most common ways. Number 1, goodness feels safe, even in growth, okay? At high somatic IQ, the body feels fundamentally safe, even while things are changing, evolving, expanding, whether that's a conversation that's hard, a business that's challenging, a pregnancy, menopause, a marriage season that hurts, or a new relationship. You're not rigid, you're not braced, you're not resigned, you're not collapsed. You're not anticipating what's next. You're excited. You're in it. Okay. You're enthralled. You're looking up. Even if it's not phenomenal, you're looking up. Rest no longer feels indulgent. Even grief can feel like a release. This is a huge shift. Most people don't lack discipline to follow through on their goals. They lack access to the inspiration that makes action feel natural and getting organized feel fulfilling. High somatic IQ beauty is the absence of that tightening. Sign your beauty is high, number 2. Inspiration becomes abundant and usable, okay? At low somatic IQ, inspiration is rare or fleeting, or it feels diluted, immature, or unrealistic. Okay, this is the cynic convinced they're the ones living in the real world, whereas the happy people are out of touch. Okay, for them, inspiration either it doesn't arrive, or it arrives and it disappears, or is dismissed before it can become anything. At high somatic IQ, inspiration is plentiful, not by bypassing depressing aspects of reality, but by seeing beyond it, or even sensing the beauty in it. People with high SIQ definitely get down, but it's a blip because inspiration returns aplenty, okay? It's everywhere, and more importantly, it feels like guidance. It's the opposite of being out of touch. It brings you directly in touch. It moves you gently into form, into action, the right actions to your goals, even habits and routines you need to consciously implement. They don't need to be forced or chased. You don't have to willpower your way through it. You feel drawn. Number 3, desire feels trustworthy. You don't have to manage it. Like, I shouldn't even want that house because I can never afford it. Or suppress it. Like, don't even think of that vacation. We can't go. Or justify. But what if I worked while we were there? Then it wouldn't be such a waste. I know that one. There's no more constant second guessing. No shame loop. No over logic that kills momentum towards the dream before it even starts. Desire actually becomes orienting. It points you towards next steps, not haphazardly, but clearly. This is one of the clearest signs of high SIQ beauty. Decisions feel grounded, quiet, and embodied, but elating. Like you just know, and it feels good. Number 4, energy replenishes instead of draining. So at low SIQ, energy leaks, okay? Even rest can feel tiring. If you ever wake up more tired than when you went to sleep, yeah, that, okay? Life feels like it costs more than it gives back, right? So your energy quietly dwindles over time, leading to burnout. At high SIQ, energy flows cleanly, okay? Beauty allows life to feed you, work feels expressive instead of depleting, movement feels nourishing, and rest actually restores. This is why people with developed beauty don't need to constantly recover from their lives. Their lives replenish them. People always gawk at the fact that I work on my kids' naps, okay? Especially other stay-at-home moms. They always say, like, you work on your break? But for me, the two things energize one another. After being a mama, I'm excited to work. And after working, I'm excited to mom. Number 5, life feels lived, not managed. This might be the most important one. When beauty is online, life no longer feels like a constant project to optimize, control, or keep afloat. The background state shifts. Home feels like a sanctuary. Your body feels like a place you belong. Relationships feel supportive rather than draining. There's a felt sense of, I'm here. I belong in this life. This is mine to inhabit, to fill out. Not because everything is perfect, but because the sympathetic nervous system is no longer activated and therefore at war with enjoyment. Beauty doesn't replace measurable success. It makes it sustainable. This is where beauty connects directly back to bounty, the complementary personal power of the body district we explored last week. Beauty feeds inspiration. Inspiration feeds motivation. Motivation feeds sustainable action. When beauty is present, momentum builds naturally. Habits form with ease. Follow-through feels inevitable. Growth becomes rhythmic. not forced. It's not brittle. It's not exhausting. Beauty doesn't make you passive or bypassing. It taps you in, makes you alive. And from aliveness, action becomes clean. So if you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in the dents we talked about earlier, I want you to hear this clearly. Nothing about this means that you're broken. Nothing about this means that you failed. Nothing about this means you're too late, certainly. It means your shape adapted, and now it's ready to reshape. Beauty is not a personality trait or a body type. It's not vain. It's not superfluous. It's an evolutionary driver. It's a personal power. And like every personal power in this work, it can be developed. If you want to dive into doing this work for yourself, join the membership, okay? We cover a new personal power every single month, and you'll get focused guidance plus my proprietary tools and therapy specific to that power. If you want the full attachment to personal powers map, grab my book, Be Yourself, Not Your Parents. And if you want to check out my teaching style or you feel like you need to get yourself out of a funk, you can start with the first lesson of the Zero to Hero course, Getting Unstuck, for free. Everything is linked in the show notes, and stay tuned for next episode because we're unpacking energy next, which is the personal powers of comfort and confidence. And if this week hit, that one is going to blow your mind. I'll see you then.